Battle of the special grades. Who would win between Yuki and Geto? Let's talk about it, but spoilers beware. All right, first of all, shout out to Mr. Sleepyhead for asking me about this today, and specifically he wanted to know how I thought this matchup would be different from Yuki versus Kinjaku, which is relevant because Kinjaku is in Geto's body, right? So we kind of got to see this, or at least a version of this. However, this fight went way different than a potential Yuki versus Geto would go, in my opinion, and that's because Kinjaku is far stronger than Geto. So this is like the best possible version of this from Geto's perspective. However, Geto is at the mercy of being written in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, which was meant to just be a standalone one-shot. Which means that, we never saw Geto have a domain expansion, right? But that's because Gege Akutami hadn't even come up with domain expansions when he wrote JJK 0. So if we just want to pluck Geto out and thrust him against Yuki, he's just going to lose because she has a domain and he doesn't. Now, obviously, it's a bit more complicated than that. Even if he doesn't have a domain, we could probably at least grant him anti-domain techniques given his level and prestige as a special grade sorcerer. So maybe he would be able to fight back within that, considering he's going to have tens of thousands of cursed spirits at his disposal, plus things like Uzumaki, right? So I do think he could put up a good fight, but I ultimately think that that domain is just going to be too much of a hurdle for him to surmount. Not to mention the fact that Yuki's technique is absolutely broken, right? Really, she lost to plot more so than she actually lost. And if we want to go the route of, well, let's just pretend that Geto had a domain expansion, like then how would the matchup go? And really, it's just whatever we want to headcanon say, like his potential would have evolved into, right? Because yeah, we can give him a domain expansion, but then at that point, like who do we want to say is more refined? And it's really just, there's nothing to pull on there. We would just have to say, right? So ultimately, I think Yuki would win. But if we want to say like full potential Geto versus full potential Yuki, then I would probably lean Geto at that point. But honestly, that would just be based upon like my narrative feelings and really nothing else. And at the end of the day, Yuki always has black hole in her back pocket. So if anything, they both lose. And then finally, Mr. Sleepyhead also asked, who do I think would win this fight philosophically or ideologically? Would Yuki join Geto's mission to destroy all sorcerers, or would she have been able to kind of bring him back to the light? And honestly, I don't really think that either one would have convinced the other. But if you want me to like force to pick like who would kind of be the stronger force in that regard, then I think ultimately Geto would have been able to recruit Yuki because, he was kind of at odds with Jujutsu Society and she never saw eye to eye with society. So I don't really think she'd be able to pull him back to that. Anyways, that's going to do it for this one, but I would love to hear y'all's thoughts.